On July 15, 2022, Sony closed the deal to acquire Bungie for $3.6 billion. The important detail I want to focus on is the fact that Sony bought them with the intention of Bungie helping Sony expand its live service, which is to launch 10 live service games by March 2026. That's 10 live service games, give or take 2 or 3 years. That is bananas. All right. So they buy Bungie with the intention to make sure those games have a great foundation. That's fine. I'm good with that. Except Bungie doesn't even have a great foundation. After the launch of Lightfall, be honest with yourself. How confident are you in Bungie to close out this light and dark saga strong? We are in year 9 of Destiny. And to Bungie's credit, they're going to make it to the 10-year mark they said they would originally when they signed the contract with Activision. It was a 10-year contract. But in year 9, they still haven't gotten Destiny right. If you're Sony, even though you just acquired them, wouldn't you be at least a little worried that Bungie may not be the answer you were looking for to help with that live service initiative? I certainly would be questioning it. What about Bungie's monetization method is anything they could pass on to the other developers who are working on these live service games? Because if you look at it, Bungie just brute force monetization. They are the only developer that is using nearly every video game monetization method available. Besides selling a game with pre-orders, they include expansions, the free-to-play model, microtransactions, the battle pass model, and the seasonal model. They used to have the DLC model when they were with Activision, but at least when they were with Activision, it was just the base game, DLC, and expansions. Now, since they've gone away from Activision, they've ditched the DLC and added everything else. If you're one of these other developers creating a live service game for Sony, what's there to learn from them? Hey, guys, just put everything in there. Yeah, you got okay, add the seasonal model too. Figure out a way to do that. We'll help you figure that out. I know it's more nuanced than that. Trust me. I get it. You have to have great content. You have to have a plan that's very far in advance. You have to have a large enough team to maintain all of it, and you have to have a good rollout strategy. I know it's not simply like just put this stuff in and you can do this and boom, you make money. But consider this. The reason why Bungie has been able to get away with using every monetization model is because they were the first-person shooter MMO on consoles. Maybe there was one on PC that did okay, but there's been nothing like Destiny for consoles. And when you're the first, you have a lot of advantages. There's a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. It's a pretty good book, very thoughtful. But the very first law it talks about is the law of leadership. It really should be called the law of being first, because that's basically what it talks about. It basically says that if you're going against other huge markets, don't do that. Don't try to compete with the huge markets. Create your own market. Be the first. It's not exactly what Bungie did, but they were the first-person shooter MMO on consoles. No one else can get anything like Destiny anywhere else. And for those who have tried to do what Destiny does, they've failed or they're limping. And because of that, Bungie has been able to survive the frustration of their fans. Bungie's gotten campaigns and other expansions right before. Maybe they'll do it again. Maybe. It's possible. But history has shown Bungie's gotten it wrong most of the time. Many of you have tolerated Destiny. These developers don't need the experience of a company where the fans have simply tolerated the game and they pay into it because they're socially glued to it. I know you don't like this game, but you know who's gotten it right? Fortnite. They had a plan. They stuck to their plan. And even when they had to adjust, they stuck with their principle. What's Bungie's principle? They're willing to add FOMO to Destiny in order for you to buy in. Fortnite has a little bit of FOMO, but it's no different than a clothing sale at Macy's. With Destiny, you lose the opportunity to participate in actual gameplay. You'll miss an opportunity to understand the story. You'll miss out on strikes and raids. You'll miss out on fundamental stuff that should never leave the game. And they sunset stuff all the time in the name of storage space and efficiency and whatever else they could think of. Does that sound like a company that's got a plan? And by the way, Bungie said in 2020, they wanted to fix the FOMO problem. Yeah, it was Luke Smith who said that. It's 2023 now. There's still FOMO. So again, I credit Bungie for being the first, for doing something nobody else has been able to do. But that's what they're riding. That's what they're coasting on. And so I asked Sony, you sure Bungie knows what they're doing to be able to help your other live service games? To me, this looks like Sony bought Bungie because that's all who was available who has, what looks like a successful live service. Monetarily, it's successful. Gameplay wise, it's successful. But again, they're riding being first. Fans hate the FOMO, the inconsistent story, the lack of support for PvP, the lack of support for Gambit, but they keep playing it because there is nothing quite like it on the market. And Bungie knows that, and they're taking advantage of it. That's not success. If you want to consider that success, fine, but you're not learning anything from it, and it's certainly going to be hard to teach it. There's another reason why it was a mistake for Sony to acquire Bungie. They run their own live service. Sony plans to use Bungie to help expand its 10 live service games, okay? Let me make the obvious more obvious. Bungie is a live service game, and they're there to help other live services. I hope that clicks. Oh, Anthony, Destiny is too big to fail. I agree, but all it takes is for one of Sony's live service games to take off, and that could eat at Bungie's player base. And Bungie would have been the team that helped that live service game be successful. Like, you think Bungie really wants another live service game to take off? You think Bungie wants extra competition at all? Like, when it comes to live service games, this isn't like, all boats rise with the tide, type of thing. That's not what this is. Like, you in order to keep the money flowing in, you got to keep the players coming in. I'm not saying players need to be playing the game 24/7. I'm not suggesting that, but you got to keep their eyes coming back to the game. You got to keep them coming back. You think Bungie really wants to compete with another live service game that's great? Like, these questions might sound silly, but to me, it's painfully obvious that there's a real problem here. Maybe this could have been Sony's plan. What I'm about to say was not my idea. I was talking to a friend. They are a prominent Destiny player in the community. This was their idea. When they decide to voice it themselves, you know it was them that said it first, and you'll hear it because they have a big platform. But I'm just going to voice it here. They suggested to me that Sony might just hire a lot of Bungie's employees away from Bungie with desirable positions, which would leave Destiny as a husk. And I'm going to add to it. This is my interpretation now. May not leave Destiny as a husk, but if the core leadership of Destiny isn't there, one of two things will happen. Destiny will not be as good as it is even now, or it could become even better depending on who takes over. But that idea would make sense considering Sony wants its live service games, and as many of them, to be successful. Now, I would say that's a 50-50 scenario, but it can't be ruled out. The competition aspect cannot be ignored with this. Bungie is a live service developer at this point, and they're helping Sony develop live services. So I look at the history of Bungie and scrutinize its success. I don't think Sony should have bought Bungie unless they genuinely are going to hire away Bungie's employees. Bungie hasn't shown itself to be a leader in savvy monetization. They can't get rid of the FOMO. There's no savvy. They just brute force monetization, and they're just taking advantage of the fact that they were first. Don't expect any of Sony's live service games to do anything special other than what's already been proven on the market. So here's my question to you. After seeing Lightfall, do you think it's a mistake that Sony bought Bungie? You know where to comment. Tap whatever thumb you like and subscribe for more conversations on the latest video games and topics.